This is We Burlesque.
The following episode of the Movies That Made We, Ooky Spooky will contain spoilers for all of the films referenced in the show notes. Additionally, discussion may include triggers for trauma due to the provocative nature of horror media, not limited to sexual abuse, racism, ableism, homo and transphobia, violence, self-harm, and animal death. Corresponding clips of these films may feature visually distressing content.
We're going to keep moving along because we are about to hit our second films. Mr. Valdez, tell the folks at home what our second film is.
So I had one, but then I thought all of them are still in the same genre. So I'm going to call an audible really quick. So my next one is The Strangers.
Okay.
For those who've not seen The Strangers, it's basically like Liv Tyler and her husband person are just hanging out.
We can never remember the name of the husband. You notice that? We've always remembered the actress. What is that about? What does that say about us?
Yeah, but there's like a knock on the door, and then there's like some little girl out there. She's asking like if someone home, and they're like, oh well, you're no one's here. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she leaves, and then all of a sudden, just like it's a group of these masked people who just like try to invade this home and essentially grab them and torture them, and that's basically like the whole movie, right? Them trying to get out of their own home, which I think is part of what's terrifying about it too. But I'm very much about the types of movies where like this shit can really happen to people. And I think what stuck with me most about that movie is Liv Tyler's character. She's like sobbing and she's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And literally they just go, you were home. It could have literally been anybody on that block. Right? Maybe somebody, stepped out, to go get some ice cream that night and they were lucky for getting ice cream, but it was that one person who happened to be home that now it's unfortunately your unlucky day. So it's every time like I see people who are like, we're watching The Strangers, and I'm like, nope. Like I'll do like slasher things. That's perfectly fine. Zombie movies, fine. Possession movies, totally fine. That one is the one that I watched one time and I was like, I'm good, fam. I'm good. Like, no more. So yeah, it's just the terrifying invasion of your home space, kind of like how you had mentioned with the ghosts. But I think it's more so they're trying to get out of that space because they came into their home and chased them around their home, and now they got to try to get out.
We said that children are terrifying, but children grow up, and therefore adults are also terrifying a lot of the time. And I think absolutely, home invasion movies are a tough sell for a lot of people because of the unpredictability and the real life connotations. Whether or not you believe in demon possessions or the supernatural, those seem like far in between, as opposed to real life violence, which is fairly common. Everything takes place in like the same 4 rooms. And then that creates that sort of tension and claustrophobic response. Why do you think that, or actually I shouldn't, I'll phrase it this way. Since the salacious part is the strangers, the bad guys, the folks who are invading. That requires, I would say, a lot of work on the real people, because they have to become not only vulnerable, but worth saving in the eyes of the audience. So how did you feel about Scott Speedman was the name of her husband, the actor who played her husband, and Liv Tyler, Kristen and James? How do you think that they played being attacked, essentially? Because we're seeing it through them.
Oh, I thought it was actually very well done. Because it was kind of one of those like, is something going on here? Because it was just kind of like, it started off with the whole, well, that's weird that they're just like some random little girl at our door, but okay. But then, she keeps coming back. And then kind of that moment when they realize, oh shit, we have a problem here. I think they did a very, very good job of playing that up. And I think especially what really, like I said, it's that final scene, right, where, they don't know why. I think that's probably like the main reason, is that there was no backstory for these characters. There was no reason to hate them or be like, oh yeah, fuck them, right? They deserve what's coming to them. It was just two people just like in their home, like just typical Wednesday night, and then all of a sudden, this whole thing goes crazy, and like they're literally like, why? Like they're asking why, and that was the reason why. Like it wasn't a revenge story, it wasn't anything like that. It was just some people looking like, hey, we're gonna kill some people today.
And that's very real, because I mean, we do live in a I don't like Mondays kind of world where people do have violent responses, and it's really because we don't know what's in their brain. We don't know what's firing in a certain way, and our commonplace knowledge of psychosis and psychopathy is limited to film. A lot of times we don't know what compels people.
Yeah, this is such a classic. Just such a classic, thing. And you made me think of two other films that I was like, oh, I should have brought those up. It's the same idea, home invasion, but
Is one of them Hush?
She's deaf.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
what terrified me in
good.
that too was that, right, she writes on that, she's all like, I didn't even see your face, and he just takes his mask off and stares right at her. I'm like,
You've seen it now. Let's move into Kiki's second film then.
Okay, my second film is The Visit. I think it's a good horror film. It's about a single mom, has two kids. They're pretty young, I think not even pre-teenage, maybe something. And she's estranged from her parents for 15 years. They find their kids and her on Facebook. They somehow convince her to let them go visit them for a week while she takes this cruise and leaves them there. And turns out, I'm not actually going to spoil this one, because if you look at it through that lens of just like, this is the story, how does it end? I actually think it pulls all the things you want from a horror film when you just want to hunker down. It's suspenseful. There's a lot of dismissiveness, but you can play it off and you believe them, and then it builds. And then there's gore and disgust and blood and murder, and kids are the heroes, but they have to also be the bad guys. And that's always a thrilling moment. What I really want to say about this film, and the reason why it stuck with me so much, is because what the fuck are you doing dropping off your kids? No, I'm sorry. She doesn't even drop them off. I think they like got on a train themselves and they were picked up. Like, what are you doing? Leaving your kids with strangers? Like, I don't care if they're your parents. You haven't seen them in 15 years and you're estranged from them. Clearly, things aren't good between you. Clearly, they must have done something to you that you don't agree with. Why are you leaving your kids? I just could not drop that. And I did watch this with my movie club, and they will attest that I was so pissed the whole movie and just like screaming at her. And they would video call. They would video call with the mom. And she was always like, oh, they're just old. Oh, they're just this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you not want to talk to the adults and ask how your kids are? Because kids lie. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and kids don't know what they don't know. So like, you just should always check in with the adults as well and be like, how are things going? Like, there's just so many red flags. And of course, I'm probably going to offend someone out there. And like, I apologize if I did that. I'm sure when you left your kids with your estranged parents of 15 years, everything went great. But generally speaking, what the fuck? And so
Hashtag not all estranged parents.
exactly. Exactly. But like, holy shit. And then the mom is just, you know, on a cruise somewhere having the time of her life, doesn't care that like her kids are going through hell, like so dismissive, so just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And everybody uses it to their advantage. Like the grandparents use the dismissiveness to their advantage too, of like, oh, we're just old and we need things a certain way, you know? So yeah, if you're into like a frustrating situation that just gets more frustrating, I recommend this. With a horror twist, I recommend this film.
Nana? Nana, you okay?
Good afternoon.
I heard you laughing.
I have the deep darkies.
Nana? Nana! Nana, stop! Nana, stop! Nana, what's happening?
You have to laugh to keep the deep darkies in a cave.
This is an M. Night Shyamalan film, and I think it is one of his more successful ones. I remember watching it and going, "Oh fuck," which, of course, knowing it's a Shyamalan film, you expect that there has to be a twist because that's what his empire has been built on. But you're left. But the thing is, though, I think sometimes that can be very distracting. So you're watching a movie like, okay, so what's it going to be? What's it going to be? What's it going to be? In this estimation, I think in this film example, I think I was more like, wait, what's going on though? Wait, but what's going on? It left me guessing more than wondering, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, and I think this one too, even though there is a twist and it's, I think it's a fairly good one. It's not one that is so out there. It's like, holy cow. It's one that you're like, oh yeah, but of course, but it's still satisfying. You know, like they still manage to find that balance between what do they want? What do they already think they know is going to happen, but without giving it away, so that when it's revealed, it's not a called it. Instead, It's a like, yeah, fucking told you. You know, like that's what I think was successful here.
Well, one of the things also, I didn't realize it while watching it, but I found out after while I was looking through, I was like, okay, so how did this, let me, I enjoy reading about a film while I'm watching it sometimes. I'm not I don't mind a spoiler in that regard, usually, especially with horror movies, because I don't really want to be scared, I guess. And I remember being, while like very much through the film, when I saw like this little trivia bit, there's no score. There's no music. So while every once in a while, like a radio is on or something like that, there's no atmospheric music to help us along the way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of times those music cues, especially in horror, the tension is helped created by like the violin, or we know, okay, we're getting closer, and all of the scares aren't given they're not given that I forget, I don't know what it's called, but that burst of sonic sound. I think that's very effective.
Yeah. I don't even remember that. So yeah,
it's just part of the, it's just part of
very effective. Yeah, my security blanket is I love watching trailers. And so if I'm watching a film and it's getting bad and I'm worried for the character that's going to die, I'm like, well, I haven't seen this scene yet. And this scene is in the trailer. Therefore, they're going to survive this. They're going to survive this thing, you know?
Trailers lie. Oh my God, do trailers lie? Sometimes. Let us continue on. Does anybody have a thought about, has anyone seen The Visit?
So that's one of the ones I think it's probably a scene that's embedded in my brain. The kid's hiding under the house, and grandma comes like
Yes.
Spider-Maning in there after him. Not today, Granny.
No, thank you. No, thank you for me. Yeah. As much as children as a trope in horror are terrifying, there's something also terrifying about the elderly, because we are terrified of our own rotting and our own decay. And the concept of elderly people, it's sort of like the fast zombie concept. We're like, no, I need my zombies to be slow. I don't want my zombies to be fast. The idea of elderly people with any sort of speed in a disconcerting way. Nope, that's too much. Lewd Alfred Douglas, let's talk about your second film.
Yeah. The second film I want to talk about is a 1980s film called Company of Wolves, featuring, she's the star of it in my book, but I don't know if she's actually the star, our beloved Angela Lansbury. And it's like it's got a hub story and then lots of like vignettes. So it's not an entire through line of like story, but it's lots of little stories that all feature some kind of femininity versus like the wild represented by a wolf. And so it's like werewolf stories and Little Red Riding Hood adjacent stories. And it is Angela Carter's story. I don't know whether she wrote the screenplay or just wrote a book that it's based on.
She and Neil Jordan wrote the movie.
Okay. So yeah, I have read one of her books. I know like the general genre of her stuff is like unsettling things that are specifically from a feminine perspective, which I certainly don't have like the authority to speak on from that angle. I also wasn't able to really get on board with the one of her books that I read, but the movie is awesome. And well, like the movie resonated with me in a way that her book didn't, which is just a personal thing. And it was shown to me first, just one little scene, one of the vignettes was shown to me in art school as an example of practical effects going over the top. And it's so cool. It's like, it's a really iconic kind of werewolf transformation sequence where the man's like skin peels back and then a wolf snout emerges from his mouth. So like you may have seen it on like compilations of like classic horror movie practical effects or something, or like werewolf transformation things, but it's pretty iconic.
in your many watchings of werewolf transformation YouTube montages. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Which doesn't everyone? Okay. But yeah, it's all like very gendered. It's about like women encountering men who are like representative of both like the patriarchy harming people, but also representative of like an uncontrollable, like primal wolf-like spirit. Yeah, without like describing all of the scenes, I will say there's one story that starts with a beautiful aristocratic outdoor banquet in a tent, and it's like gorgeous. All of the scenes are like really fantastical. That they do classify this film as a horror - fantasy. So it opens with these like beautiful made up like 18th century style nobles having a banquet, and it's a wedding banquet, and a wild looking witch like common woman but bursts into the tent and accuses the groom of getting her pregnant and leaving her, and she curses them, and then like slowly all of the aristocrats turn into wolves, while she like laughs and like raises her baby out in the wilds with wolves. And the scene is like, it's a cool like dark fairy tale kind of thing, and they're all like that, but the transformation is like You see all the people in the 18th century get-ups, and then it cuts back to her, and then when it cuts back to them, they've got some like werewolf prosthetics on, and their nails are starting to grow, and they're starting to be like, oh my god, what's happening to me? And then it cuts back to her, and then it cuts back to them, and it's just dogs in dresses. It's amazing. Just dogs in dresses. And like there's a stampede of wolves at the end that I think, if I may say like what it meant to me, I don't know if this is how Angela Carter or the film decided it, what I was supposed to receive, but to me, there's like a stampede of wolves at the end that the little girl who's being told all these stories is deciding to like unleash this wild, angry spirit. And like the stampede of wolves is, it appears to be like coming for her and it's dangerous, but actually it's like her summoning them. And the stampede of wolves, if you are familiar with like animal body language, it's just happy. It's like happy, excited dogs, like excited to be running together and like going toward whoever's telling them to run. But like ominous music and like glowing eyes and it's slow motion of them breaking through windows. But you're like, those are really happy dogs. So I love that about it too.
Don't stray from the path, girl. Did you not hear what I told you? Once you stray from the path, you're lost entirely. The wild beasts know no mercy. They wait for us in the wood, in the shadow. And once you put a foot wrong, they pounce. There now. Don't take on so. It's something you have to learn, otherwise you'll end up like your poor dear sister.
Gran, can I have one?
I don't see why not.
Ugh. Ugh.
You've got a lot to learn, child. Never stray from the path, never eat a windfall apple, and never trust a man whose eyebrows meet. There's something I should tell you,
Yes?
but maybe you're too young.
Tell me, Gran.
Too young to understand.
Oh, go on, Gran, tell me.
But maybe no child is ever too young. A wolf may be more than he seems. He may come in many disguises.
What's that?
The wolf that ate your sister was hairy on the outside, but when she died, she went straight to heaven. The worst kind of wolves are hairy on the inside, and when they bite you, they drag you with them to hell.
What do you mean, hairy on the inside? Like a furry coat?
Hush now, foolish child. Listen. Once upon a time, there was a woman in the village. She married a traveling man.
But yeah, it's beautiful. Like the dark fantasy aesthetic in it is great, and the practical effects are neat. And there is a character in it who's supposed to be a very handsome man who has a really thick unibrow, and I like that too. I saw it at the National Film Theatre in London on the big screen, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And like, why did my film school class say that it was over the top? It's great.
Well, it's to be sometimes you and I both know that over the top is just enough. Sometimes.
True. Yes.
Larger than life is just the right size. Does anybody else have a relationship with werewolf movies?
I don't have a relationship with werewolf movies, but literally, if Lewd Alfred Douglas made a podcast of just explaining movies, I would subscribe to it hands down.
I know a place that could host it. Lewd Alfred.
I can literally listen to describe the plots of movies all day.
Thank you very much.